people, so you were getting invites to go to other places that that resulted, no doubt, from somebody witnessing what you were doing, and then they said, "Hey, we got to get this guy to our event."
That's correct. I wasn't paid.
Yeah,
I wasn't paid any money to do these things, but wherever my wife and children went, we were provided with accommodation and other things. Yes, it was a lot of fun.
I'm struggling to remember not to say things, but instead ask questions, and then you've got to remember to incorporate whatever my point is in the setup to the answer. Did anyone? Was there anyone during this 4-year or what was the date that you met Moyes and Bennett?
In 1967.
Yeah, but when in '67?
March 1967.
Okay, so there was almost a 4-year period. Well, there was a 4-year period where
yes.
where you and Rod were flying. Were there, in that 4-year period, were there any other people that joined in with you or chased after you? I mean, I imagine a long line of people begging you to try this thing out. And did you sell any gliders?
Yes, I did. I sold one to Benora Point Water Ski Gardens. I sold one to a gentleman who I completely forget his name. It was at Taree. And I sold one to Ray Leighton in Sydney. So there's 3 that I sold. I also sold some back in Sydney, but it's a bit blurry as to who they went to.
And did you not have people come up to you at these different skiing events where you were seen by, had to have been many hundreds, if not thousands of people, all told, over this 4 years? Did no one say, "Please let me do this"?
Well, no. Very few people want to be seen as lunatics and daredevils and likely to die at any instant. So this was.
Happy to see you.
They were very happy to see me do it, and yes, that's correct.
Perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps.
You're making me feel like an idiot.
I'm sorry.
It was a very different time. How did you? So you built quite a lot of hours. Do you have any idea how many hours you and Rod might have put on this wing?
Calculating that we did about 20 minutes to half an hour per weekend, and you take holidays out of that. You plus the time that I spent flying, and very often you'd go to a site and you'd have to practice with the boat drivers who were bent on killing you half the time. They had a mind of their own. By the time I left Grafton, I would have had about 30 hours in the air. And when I came to Sydney, I set a couple of endurance records on Botany Bay, and plus other flying on the Hawkesbury River, would have taken me up to another 10 hours. So all told, when in the end of 67 or 69 anyway, when I stopped flying, I had about 40 hours in the air.
So were there times where either you overflew the rope, or the rope failed, or you deliberately released the rope? Can you describe the number of times or amount of time that you might have flown not under tow?
Initially, we flew under tow and landed under tow right through to around March 1964. And for a long while, we didn't have any releases either on the boat or the wing. And due to an accident, I developed releases. But from around February, March, would have been March 1964, we became expert with the gliding, and we chose to release from the rope. Typically, we were using 2 ski ropes, which meant they were 140 feet long. We wouldn't be right over the top of the boat, but we certainly would have been from 100 feet or so, and we'd release from the rope, glide down and eventually would have very elegant landings on the ski to the water's edge, step off the ski like Superman, and that's what we did all the time from that time on.
Except for that one time when you went into the bulrushes. Could you tell me about that?
Yes, this is my very last flight, which was supposed to be perfect in every way. It was a beautiful sunny day. There was no wind to speak of. I was in the air for probably 15 minutes performing before the Jacaranda crowd, November 1965. I went over the far side of the river, which is something over half a mile wide, climbed to the top of the rope, 140 feet, nodded to indicate to the boat I wanted maximum speed, and I then put it into a dive. I was probably doing 45 miles an hour, did a slow S-curve as it travelled towards the beach where we normally launch from. The intention was to do one of these elegant landings on a single ski, step off like a hero at the other end, realised I was going to arrive at the beach with 18 inches of height between me and the ski, was still doing nearly 30 miles an hour, and I had no choice but to put the glider on its wingtip, do a smart turn around that wingtip, and then cartwheeled right along the side of the wall underneath the announcer in amongst the bulrushes. I picked myself out of there spitting bulrushes and things, and the announcer, a guy called Val Preston, said with great aplomb, "What a spectacular end to a spectacular flight." Unfortunately, it wasn't on camera. Yep.
I meant to ask, what did you choose to build your airframe from? Why, and at what point and why did you switch airframe materials?
The airframe material, the keel leading edges were of Oregon timber. I think you call it Douglas fir here. The tube that was the main spar was part of a television mast. It was aluminium, 16 gauge, 1.5 inch diameter outside diameter. The fittings, like the A-frame or the material the frames were made from, were from a scrap heap, and the wiring was from television aerial straining wires, and the fabric was taken from banana bags, the blue plastic, which comes in rolls, so it had a plastic wing stuck together with sticky tape. It cost me what was £12 in Australian money at that time, which was the equivalent to $2 American. It would have been $24 to build it.
And why did you why did you switch to aluminum, and did you also switch to cloth sail around the same time?
To do a better job of the thing. I mean, I was trying to build something to aircraft standards, whereas the other device was a flying heap of junk.
In March, I think you said, was it March of '67 that you had the opportunity to meet either Bill Bennett or Bill Moyes or both, and could you tell us about how you met them and what they knew about flying at that point?
I first met Bill Moyes and Bill Bennett in around March 1967. They were interested in purchasing one of my wings. I'd made an arrangement with a chap called Mike Burns, who was building a ski plane at that time based on the Delta biconical wing, and he had the facilities to manufacture them. So I was demonstrating that wing to anybody that was interested. They made an appointment with Mike Burns and myself to meet on the Hawkesbury River and to have a trial flight. And that's how I got to meet these two guys.
Did you met them at the same time? They knew each other already?
They were friends, as I understood it.
Do you think they knew about your work in advance of you meeting them?
I was told later on by what I would call a reliable source that they had been watching me fly and were interested in getting their hands on one to also fly. And Bill Bennett, I understand, was flying ski kites prior to meeting me, the old shield-shaped ones.
So you sold gliders to them. You continued to work with them. Can you describe how your continuing work with them, or what your continuing relationship was, say up through '69 or so?
Yes, I don't know whether Bennett bought a glider, but I certainly know that Bill Moyes built a glider. My patent applied for had run out. I also had moved back to Sydney and had quite a lot of financial problems because, well, just moving back to Sydney, I'd lost a lot of money. So I could see I couldn't do any more development with it, but particularly with Bill Moyes, I could see in him somebody that was going to take my dream of this device eventually being powered, of going around the world in this man, and so I assisted him as best I could. This went on to 1969 when circumstances caused me to walk away from it. And I stopped flying in 1969. I had a relationship with Bill that went on to about 1973, where I was advising him technically on some of the problems he was getting with the wing.
There's a I thought it was 1980 article in Hang Gliding magazine that about a wing that you and Bill Moyes had a hand in. You familiar with which article I'm talking about? I thought that was 1980.
No, I'm not. Oh, hang on. Yes, around 1980, I was actually out of work, and I thought maybe I could get back into the designing sides of things, and I actually designed a rigid wing, which I called the frigate, and Bill Moyes built an example of it. And I actually flew that wing, foot launched it off a sandhill at Botany Bay. It flew very well. It felt very much like one of my earlier wings, but it was complex to build, and it took a lot of work to assemble and disassemble on the site, and Bill decided not to go on with it. I'd almost forgotten about that, as a matter of fact.
Bill must have had a pretty good idea of your design ability to invest the amount of money that it would have taken to build the rigid wing. He must have had a high expectation based on good experience that you would be able to produce something that would warrant him expending the money on that wing.
By 1980, I would have to believe that he was a millionaire from the sales. He had a worldwide organisation. So the cost of building the wing may have been only $200 or $300 at the most. It was peanuts compared
that he thought enough of you to build that wing.
In a single word, yes.
So go ahead and tell us.
Yeah. Put it in the form of a statement, please.
Well, yes, of course he had the confidence. I'd also provide him with lots of other data. For example, he built a...
Can you mention who you're talking about? Start over and mention who you're talking about, yeah. Because we
Bill
won't
Moyes.
Yes.
Talking about Bill.
Yes, talking about Bill Moyes, he also built a little, you call it a flying trimaran, a surfboard in the middle with a balancing float on either side, with control basically the same as a trike. It had a frame on it, and indeed there are pictures of, I think, himself and Molly Moyes on it. Now that design came from me.
Really?
Mm.
Yeah, we are kind of...
I think we should stop.
Well, how do you feel about how from the humble beginnings of being towed behind a boat to now there are flyers all over the world with, you know, very advanced wings. I mean, how do you feel when you sort of see the progression that's taken place from where it began? You can speak to
Could you ask that question?
Yeah, well, no, just answer the question as, yeah.
Well, the thing I feel about where hang gliding is today is very satisfying to me, because I really did see that in the future, and in my past I saw this future, that people would be flying in the way that they did, that human beings would walk off a hill into the sky and soar like birds. And I'm not all of the story, but I'm so proud and so pleased and so satisfied to be part of it.
Thank you, John.
Beautiful.
That was
You're
great.
welcome.